is a profit to be made by convincing people that they're not enough.
Yes.
Right?
I talk about that a lot in the book. It's driven by that, presentation that you are not enough. And that's why I think one of the first steps that you can do is to limit your, advertisement consumption, however possible.
Yeah.
Not subscribing to magazines, not even looking at magazines for a while. And then also looking at your social media feed and determining, is this making me feel less than? Is this making me feel like I'm not good enough? Hide it.
Right.
Change your social media feed. Basically, my feed now is puppies.
Right, and like positive affirmations and like pictures of beautiful places, like things that make you feel good.
Yes.
I actually, with my kids, am very intentional about wanting to teach them to look underneath. Like, oh, isn't it interesting that they're showing this alcohol advertisement where people are partying and happy and having so much fun, but you can get into car accidents and, there's all these dangerous things that can happen. And I wonder what the motivation is for wanting to make it look like that when the reality is actually this over here.
I'm so glad you're teaching your kids that.
Well, and I wish that our culture, taught kids that from the get-go mainstream.
Oh, no,
right?
but they do not want that.
No.
If you look at the food industry especially, and here's the overarching problem that I see, is that we actually didn't have high rates of obesity or all of these cardio and metabolic diseases like diabetes as much as we do now with the introduction of, processed food into our system. And also kind of this push with agriculture to, really push certain foods. And that's when we started to see obesity rates rising. That's when we started to see, these diseases becoming more and more prevalent. And when you look at that and do a deep dive, like I think a really great book for everyone to read is Sugar, Salt, and Fat. I forget the subtitle. It's like how the food industry hoodwinked us or something like that. But when you look at that, it goes into their marketing efforts. And their marketing efforts towards children is aggressive.
Sugary cereals, Tony the Tiger.
Yes, it's scary. Grocery placement is also really scary. So we do have these big systemic forces. And then you also, when you see, all of these diseases and their rise, well, the medical industry, a lot of people like Dr. Michael Greger calls it the sick care as opposed to health care.
Right, preventative.
They profit off of disease. And then pharmaceuticals, like Ozempic, they also profit. So, yes, we need commerce. Yes, we need capitalism, but it is
ethical.
At a great cost. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that we need to just blindly go about this. You're teaching your kids. This is interesting. They're trying to sell you something. And the more we become informed, the more we understand our health, the more we can make these choices, and maybe that will actually influence industry.
Right.
To change.
Like voting with our dollars.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think hoodwinked is such a great word for it, right? It's like we're gaslighting people into feeling like it's their fault with the fat shaming.
Yeah.
And what a brilliant distraction.
Yes.
Like brilliant and kind of evil, but it's a distraction, and internalizing that problem and then the emotional and mental health fallout from that.
Yes.
Well, I'm curious to hear about solutions and sort of what you recommend, how you help people. What is the path out of disordered eating? What do you advocate for in your book? And what have you seen really help people to come out the other side of this?
Absolutely. I think it starts with education. I always give, education about the body and how it rejects dieting so that people can actually learn, hopefully, finally, that it's useless and futile. And that's because basically what you're kind of taught to do is go against your natural hunger and fullness. You're taught to restrict everything and take it down. Like a 1,200 calorie diet is frightening to me because that's like less than a toddler needs. So it's really unrealistic and your body hates it. And unless you're going to stay in that kind of diet forever, which has its own host of difficulties and problems that can develop physiologically and mentally, you're going to gain the weight back. So getting that, out there first is so important. And then doing a very, very, very deep dive into childhood. Why did you develop these thought patterns? Where did they come from? And really examining that. So I do deep dive with my clients on that, and that's included in the book. I also have an online course that takes you even deeper into it. And then figuring out which thoughts don't serve us. Figuring out, are they even true?
Right.
And oftentimes they're just not true. And that's huge and an eye-opener for people. And then I use mindfulness-based cognitive therapy to help them reformulate healthier thoughts. But you can't just think a new thought and have it just, be there when you've been thinking this negative thought for forever. So that's where more of the mindfulness portion comes in. And I use mantras, which I think is super powerful. Because if you think about it, you've thought this thought over and over and over forever, right? Well, you need to start thinking something more and more. You don't have to think it all day long, but you can be systematic about how you approach mantras. And mantras are beautiful because they are, it's a meditation designed, you're repeating a phrase over and over. And what that does is it calms your nervous system. Yeah. And when you're more calm in your nervous system and get into your subconscious mind, which is very important, and that's how you reformulate this thought. So I use mantras and behavioral change, which means taking something that you want as a behavior to turn it into a habit. So I use, the kind of latest in behavioral change, which is taking something that you want to do, some new behavior you want to change, and making it a very small behavior and attaching it to something that you do every single day. So say it's a mantra. We wake up every day, hopefully. We wake up every day. I love that as a behavioral cue, especially for a mantra about ourselves. Say, your thought was, I'm worthless. That's a very common thought, which is sad and, heartbreaking. But a lot of people think it. You wake up and you want your new mantra to be, I am loved, which is a beautiful mantra. And you set a timer. So the moment you wake up, that's your cue. You set a timer and you repeat, I am loved, I am loved, I am loved. You're reconditioning your mind, but you're also settling your nervous system first thing in your day. And it is such a beautiful way to wake up.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it would set the whole trajectory, right? Like you begin on this path and like you move forward from there. So if you're starting with your foot on the right path in the first place, then you can continue along that path.
Yes.
So I actually use the science of habit formation in my coaching with my clients as well. There's a book, I believe it's called The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, I think is his name. Have you read that book?
I haven't. The one that I read was Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg. Love.
Yeah, there's so much going on in that space. Habit formation, habit stacking, which is kind of what you were talking about. Yeah, attaching a habit to something you're already doing, right? Like doing squats while you brush your teeth or whatever it is.
Very powerful.
It is. And, habits are very powerful.
Yes.
They control our behavior. And if we're not aware of them, and or if we don't have actual real practical strategies to change them, I was just thinking what you were saying, the cue of waking up, and what I remember learning from Charles Duhigg's book was that habits have a cue, a routine, which is like the habit itself, and then the reward.
Yes, that's really important.
Right, that we have to replace that reward. Do you want to speak on how you help your clients to do that? Because obviously with eating, there's a reward involved, right? You're getting something out of the habit every time you repeat it. So do you have a strategy for helping clients to kind of replace that reward with something healthier or kind of more beneficial in the long run?
Well, with eating, it's not necessarily even about it being, I don't think of it as like the positive reinforcement like with a habit. When I teach habit formation, you want that behavior to last.
Right.
And that's why we use the positive reinforcement. What people tend to do with eating is they tend to use food as something, whether it's like comfort or, say it's in restriction, they, have this idea about what it should be like. So it's not necessarily, yes, but with comfort eating, it's rewarding, and it's about, what do you need comfort from? What are you actually feeling in that moment? That's why mindful eating is so important, because when you sit down with your food, it's about asking yourself, what am I feeling right now? A lot of people don't do that. They'll just come home, they had a horrible day, somebody gossiped about them, they'll plop down on the couch and they'll just down a pint of ice cream watching, TV. And they're not thinking. But it's important to think. It's important to, even more important to feel before you're eating, and understanding, is this actual hunger or is this emotional hunger? I had a client who described it to me once that, you feel actual hunger in your belly and you feel emotional hunger in your heart. So which one are you trying to fill? Which one are you, focusing on? And if it's your heart, maybe you need to just journal. Maybe you need to go into, I coach or treat a lot of kids, and I encourage them to go into their anger closet. And just go in there and scream and hit stuff. You're in your closet, you're fine. Getting those emotions out and then assessing, am I actually hungry? So what does actual hunger feel like? It's your belly grumbling, you're feeling weak. Your mouth might be watering. You might only be thinking about food. You might be hangry. So really learning to discern between emotional hunger and actual physical hunger can be the pathway forward. Now, I use behavioral change with mindful eating. And so if you sit down with your food and you eat mindfully, and it doesn't have to take forever, it doesn't have to take like an hour, but if you, assess your senses, sight, what are you smelling? What are you hearing? What do you feel? Do you use your hands? Do you use a fork? What are you tasting? Then after you're done with your mindful eating exercise, that's when you can reward yourself. It's not with food, it's with a hug, or I did a great job, or that felt amazing, because that feeling is what's going to keep you doing that behavior.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like incentive. Yeah, and I think too about how with that mindful eating, I noticed for myself, I don't know if you have a similar experience, that if I am on my phone or watching TV or something, I never really watch TV when I eat, because then I feel like I've missed the experience of eating and I didn't enjoy it, and I felt like I was missing out on it. And I really like to be present with my food and enjoy the experience so that I've actually really had the experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of my favorite quotes in the book is from Kung Fu Panda.
Love that.
And it's when Oogway is actually counseling Kung Fu Panda about mindful eating, because he was basically just eating his feelings. And he says, yesterday is history, today is a mystery. Oh, I'm sorry, screwed it up. Yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, but today is a gift, and that's why it is called present.
I love that.
I know. So when we're eating, it's present. We're actually giving a gift to our bodies. So when you get really good at this, you become very discerning. You start to examine your food. And if it's, really full of fat and comfort food and stuff like that, your body's going to tell you. You're going to say, okay, I'd like a couple bites. That was great. But if you keep eating, I don't like it.
It doesn't feel good anymore.
It's not good. So being really present with our food and listening to our body and determining if, I'm done eating, do I feel satiated? That's actually one of the most important ways you can get out of dieting, because your body's just going to tell you exactly the moment when you've had enough, and then your hunger and your fullness hormones are regulated, and then your body's happy. And it's like, oh, yay, my body's happy, I can now burn fat stores.
But it was something that you could teach kids right away. It was almost like a class,
Yeah.
in school or something. Because it's totally lost on us as a society.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like mainstream, that's definitely not happening, but I definitely do see in like mom circles and the more holistic and that there is an awareness of that. And I think there are parents out there who are encouraging a healthier relationship with eating with their kids. And that's really inspiring to see.
Yeah.
The future.
We are coming up to the end of our time, so I just want to ask if there's anything else you'd like to share with our audience that we haven't touched upon yet, and then after that we'll get your contact details so people know how to find you if they would like to reach out.
Absolutely. I would say, if you're doing this on your own and you really want to change your relationship with food, one of the best things you can do is go inward. And whether that's journaling, seeking out a therapist, talking to a very trusted friend or family member, and opening up dialogue. That's going to help you open up your awareness. And if you really want to just stop dieting forever, pay attention to your food. Pay attention to what's in front of you. Ask your body all sorts of questions. Is this what I really want right now? Is this what I need right now? Or am I feeling emotional? And do I actually just need a hug? Do I need to get under a weighted blanket? Do I need a bath? What do I need? And give yourself that gift because you deserve to. And the more people can do this, the more they can look inward for their answers as opposed to outward.
I love that. One of the things that just keeps coming to mind as you're speaking is this idea that nurturing isn't just about the act of the nurturing. It's about being able to allow ourselves to receive that nurturing energy.
Yes.
And whether that's like the nurturing energy of the food or the nurturing energy of the love that we're giving ourselves, like I just hear that coming through so strongly in what you're sharing.
Yeah. It's really just my supreme hope that people can go inward, honor themselves, learn how to love themselves, because all of us were born unique and perfect in our own ways. And we don't need to go out and be like anyone else. We can just be ourselves, and that is enough. And if we all do that, maybe we'll create a revolution. Maybe diet culture will be a thing of the past. That's my hope. That's my prayer.
Well, I love that. And on that note, how can people find you if they would like your support or to learn more about you?
Absolutely. I have two websites. I have drsupatratovar.com. I also have anew-insight.com, and that's where you can get information about the book. You can also take the course, which is a deeper dive from the material you get from the book. The book publishes September 9th. It's going to be on all of the platforms, Amazon especially. And then you can get in touch with me through my socials at Dr. Supatra Tovar, or at Dr. Supatra Tovar, and at my.anew.insight on Instagram, Facebook, Threads, LinkedIn, YouTube. I also have a podcast. It's called Anew Body Insight, and it's on YouTube. It's also on the anew-insight.com website. It's everywhere podcasts are streaming.
I was fortunate enough to be a guest.
She was a guest. We deep dive into all things health. So lots of ways to get a hold of me. I'm totally accessible, and I love people reaching out to me.
And we will link everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the
To
notes
find
below.
her.
Mm-hmm. Well, wonderful. Thank you again so much, Dr. Supatra. Thank you for being with us here today on Dancing in the Kitchen. Please like, subscribe, and
Buy us a coffee. We love it. Thank
All
you
right.
for supporting the show.
we'll see you next time.
Bye.